Click the links for Odyssey, Bit Chute, Telegram, or do Sports Channel Coffee, the various other links. This is just one of the greatest posts ever made. You always keep this kind of stuff in mind whenever you're running around the internet. What are you saying? What are you saying? So there's a lot of David Jeffe types out there who just kind of glow from orbit. If you had, let's look at exigent circumstances, which is a way to bypass a warrant. If you had to delete an identified party, who would it be and what weapon would you use? Nice try, Glow Ninja in the trees. But this is something totally different. What about in a game, a video game? It's totally a hypothetical. It's just NPCs. What about in this game? If you could cause harm to an identified group of people, if you could, delete them, this identified group of people. What about in the game? Would you do it? Like fantasies of violence towards an identified group of people, imminent threat, enters data into the IP base. Yeah. If you could cause harm to this group of people, please write my name on a FBI list and get a SWAT team in exigent circumstances to literally burn the house down or bomb the neighborhood. If you look up that image on Google, it's the time the police bombed an entire neighborhood. Yes, really. It surprises people when they learn that their local police department has drones and explosive devices. Yes, they really do. They really do. They're going to liberate the hell out of that neighborhood. Quick, let's burn some women and children to death. The FBI loves to slaughter women and children. Why? Because they're sociopaths. Finally, the Canadian thing is waking some of these normie people up. Hopefully, we will drag the normie of the political bell curve, who's slightly to the left, slightly to the right, but they still believe in the free speech and liberty. We're going to drag those people kicking and screaming or crying, sobbing, I don't know, but we're going to drag them to the right. The government is not on the side of liberty. And, that was it's been a long time since you could say that they were. Anyway, so slithering, tricksy, slimy little worm David Jeffe asks a question that is sort of a setup to make one group of people the bad guy and then this other group of people the victim. And I admit that this is not rabbit hole level 101. This is a bit of a more advanced course. Because people like tricksy, shifty David Jeffe are a more advanced breed of subversive parasite. This isn't exactly a specific glow ninja in the trees. This is something stochastic, I guess defamation is what he was intending. It didn't work out the way he intended it, but that was his intent, was this stochastic defamation of one group of people at the expense of another. People like him cannot simply let black and white live in peace. Parasites like him poke the white and they say the black did it. Then they poke the black and they point to the white. Black and white should team up to handle these fomenters of discord. A nation can survive war, but it cannot survive subversive traitors and their machinations. So the way David Jeffe formed his question is to stir up trouble between two groups. But tricksy subversives like him will start the fire and miss the firefight. He wants to know if this anonymous crowd would target some groups and not others. And of course, he excludes Christians, who, believe it or not, are the most targeted group. They're the most marginalized and oppressed and disenfranchised victims on earth. Christians in the all over the world, and it seems to not be talked about. Weird. He excludes Christians, the Irish, the Russians, the Swedish, Palestinians, the French, and whoever else. The entire framing of his question is meant to cast one group as the victim and the other as the aggressor. This is like people in a certain part of their journey down the rabbit hole look at this as one. They see, I don't know, it's like seeing in shadows of higher dimensions, which sounds a bit schizophrenic now that I think about it. You see part of the crystal, you're seeing one of the facets, and you're just not seeing the whole thing. until you kind of take a closer look at who this guy is. How do I say this? I think is, and I know some of you know what's up. They're all onto Telegram. He intended one thing, but the result was a bit different, because the Florida nightclub deletings is still fresh in everyone's memory, and it wasn't done by a blonde, blue-eyed person of the light, though the left wished it was. Yeah, that's not hyperbole. They like every time something like this happens, they are crossing their fingers and praying to Lucifer, please, please let it be a blue-eyed guy. And it almost never is. So, David Jeffe, why did you ask this question? Who are you? What is your bias? And shall we take a closer look at David? Well, no, not on YouTube. See, the thing is, the entire framing of his question in light of the Pulse event doesn't make a lot of sense, because one group was clearly the victim, but this other group was the aggressor. And the way you're framing it, you're putting them as in the victim group. And like that Florida shooting was only, 6 years ago, 7 years ago or something. It's like, it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't. The entire frame of the question is weird, and it's multifaceted, and it's like there's different levels to it. David Jeffe, in case you forget, if I remember right, is the guy who went after the Blizzard guys, who I'm thinking if I remember, I looked at the article a long time ago, I don't think they're white European guys. But for some reason, David, when he mentioned them, he referred to their white privilege instead of their, I'm not sure if they're Middle Eastern, Arab or Israeli or something, but instead of mentioning that as their privilege, he called them white, which was really weird, because you can look at them, you're like, yeah, these aren't European dudes. They're somewhere in the Middle East. So David Jeffe has this weird need to associate white people with negative acts of non-European people. Middle Eastern people are not European. So why didn't David just be honest about that? I don't know. You would have to ask him, but I suspect that he would just block you. It started this weird deck chairs on the Titanic. The tweet is still up. I don't know if it's going to be up for long. He's using this to bring attention and get traffic. It's really a reprehensible thing. It's that concept of start the fire, miss the firefight. You cause other people to fight, and you just kind of keep moving on. It's the tricksy little coyote joker who's throwing grenades left and right, but he's profiting, but he never has to deal with the fallout. It's a really subversive, slimy thing to do, and I hope one day people wake up to it. But from what I'm reading in the tweet replies, I haven't seen anyone really wake up to it yet, and I'd have to get on Twitter and would immediately get kicked off, probably. So it started the weird deck chairs on the Titanic thing, because you got people who they jump on there and they start arguing about like who's more marginalized and oppressed and disenfranchised. Basically, there's a lot of BLT types who are jumping in there, and they're causing fights between the BLT groups. The guys in that group who are kind of at the forefront right now, and I guess are desperately in need of attention. That Twitter dopamine has got to be just a mainline heroin or something. It's got to be so sweet that they jump in there, clamoring for attention, just to talk about like who's more marginalized and oppressed. And how do I say this? Fuck. The thing is, they're talking about these different groups are talking about being attacked on the street and being called all these kind of slurs. This is the BLT group. And, if I was on Twitter, I'd be real tempted to ask, so whomst is doing the attacking? Whomst is doing the attacking? BLT folks, marginalized and oppressed. Who's the attacker? Like, well, why do you need to know that? It's a bunch of white males. No, it's not. You know it's not. I know it's not. I mean, the thing is, I don't even think they'd lie, because it's like, that's so obvious. But you ask them, like, well, who's doing the attacking? They go, that's not important. Men are doing the attacking. Yeah, but specifically who? And it's like, obviously you know where I'm going with this. They know where I'm going with this. It's like, if you don't want to focus on the real, if you can't admit you have a problem and you can't start breaking down the problem, you're never going to have a solution. You've got an issue of people being attacked, but you don't want to say who it is. It's like, okay, what can I say? Accelerate the Weimar. I mean, you get what you get. If you don't have the balls, no pun intended. Damn it, that just slipped out. To actually be honest about it, but that was a great line. Then nothing's going to change. You're just going to continue to get attacked because you'll never point the finger and say, yeah, it's this one specific group. We need to talk about it. This isn't like by denying it. It's not helping anyone by denying it. We need to be honest about it. People aren't there yet. It's a tipping point, and I get the feeling when it tips, it just, the pendulum swings in both directions, and it's starting to swing back a little bit. I don't know what can I say. It'll be spicy. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys all next episode.